Hey, welcome to the last episode of 2018. I'm calling this episode the podcast of podcasts. I'm not saying that this is the greatest podcast of all time by saying that. What I mean by podcast of podcasts is that I am recommending podcasts that I think you should be listening to, other than this podcast, of course. And since it's going to be a new year, we all make New Year's resolutions. And so I want to recommend to you four really good podcasts that I discovered this year. This is actually the first year that I started podcasting this year, but I also started listening to podcasts in 2018. And I found some ones that these are podcasts that I think every episode is gold. So I'm not saying that these are the only good podcasts out there, but these are ones that I have recommended. I have listened to an episode and I feel like this is so great. And I go on social media and I say, you got to listen to this episode. And then the next week I listen to the next episode and I want to do it again. And then I finally just realized every single episode of every single one of these podcasts are just totally worthy of recommending. So it's going to reach the point that nobody's going to pay attention if I just recommend every single episode. Everybody's just, all of my social media friends and followers are just going to say, yeah, we know you're going to recommend that. You recommend it every week. So it's going to get to be like the little boy who cries wolf. Recommending this episode of this podcast is going to do zero good. It's going to start losing stop losing its effect. So instead of doing that, I decided to wait until the end of the year, and then I'm going to make the case for you to listen to these. If you're making your New Year's resolution to try new things, I say if you're not listening to any of these podcasts and your resolution is to try new things, try at least one of these podcasts. And my recommendation is try every single one of them, but at least try one of them, if not all four of these podcasts. These are all, these are all spiritually based, Christian based podcasts. So that's where this is going. There are tons of other podcasts, but this is obviously a Christian based podcast that you're listening to. So this is what I'm listening, and we're going to start. And another reason I'm starting this, of course, at the beginning of the year, is the very first one I want to recommend is one called the Daily Audio Bible. There are a whole lot of podcasts where you can listen to the Bible read to you every day. This one is called the Daily Audio Bible. It's read by Brian Hardin, and I particularly like this because in my early days, of course, of my Christian walk, I read the Bible constantly. I read it through multiple times, and then over time you drift off. Life starts to happen, and you just can't read it all the time. You don't have the time. Then you start to, I'm so old that I got it on cassette tape, and I would listen, and I would get it. Then you got it on CD. Then maybe you got it on MP3. Your problem is you're locked in to one person reading it. You're locked into a single version when you do that. It also costs you money, and the podcast, it's completely free. But another thing is like they're read, like if you read those, you had those, maybe you love this, but in my case, like you would hear, the first one I ever had, I had on cassette, I had the whole Bible on cassette. It was Alexander Scourby reading the King James Bible, and he's reading it very authoritatively. And even when I would get more modern translations, they would still be read very religiously. And so it could get kind of, it's the Bible. And to me, if I read it myself, I would read it where it's alive, and so I would lose something having it read to me. I was actually losing something a lot of times, and even if you would get versions where they're acting, people were acting them out, and they were dramatized and that sort of thing. It's still for me personally, it wasn't getting it for me. And if that's you, I highly recommend the Daily Audio Bible. Brian Harden reads the scriptures with a great uh, passion that makes it come alive. But he also he has the biblical scholarship that where he talks about what he's reading, and he reads some Old Testament and some New Testament every day, and then he also reads some Psalms and Proverbs. So he goes through that he gets a little bit of that every day. So you don't just start out reading. Uh, you don't just start out reading it in the Old Testament and then you get bogged down for a long time in begats and with nothing else there. So you don't get into all of that. So it's really, I think he does a really good job, and he explains when he starts and finishes a book. He goes a lot into that. He has some prayer time, and then there's a community thing built into it at the end too. People can call in. There's a phone number where you can call in, and so and that's tacked on the end, and then that's optional whether or not you want to listen to that, but you can, and so there's this whole community thing going there, and it'll restart on January 1st. So this is the perfect time to jump in and get started fresh with what's going on there. So that's the Daily Audio Bible. And so I highly recommend. And it's a new. He also does a different version every week. Every Sunday he starts out with he switches versions, Bible versions. So you get to hear a little bit different version. So you're not hearing the NIV every week. You're not hearing the RSV every week. You're not hearing New Living every week. You hear all these different versions, but you get to hear something. You get to hear it told in a different way, and so you get a little something different there too. So that's the first thing. That's first thing that I highly recommend. Just to get the very basic thing to get scripture in your life every day. and there's a website and a Facebook page. So there's social media where you can connect with people too, to get in touch with people there. So there's a whole lot going on there. And that's pretty much all of these have that aspect going with them. The second one I want to recommend is the Bible Project. You may be familiar with the Bible Project. They have a lot of film videos that they do on how to read the Bible, and those are very good. I recommend those as well. They started the podcast. This is done by Tim Mackey and John Collins. They started out doing videos on various aspects on how to go through how the Bible works, how to read the Bible, how to understand the Bible. But they started doing the podcast because they go a little more in depth, which is really good. They just finished the longest series they ever did, which is the God series. And I would highly recommend going back if you haven't heard that and just listening to that whole series. Even if you're just going to start listening right now, I would still go back and listen to the whole God series because that's really good. Because the video that they made was just like 2 or 3 minutes long, I think. It was not very long. But the whole talking about was like went on for I don't know, for weeks. And it may have been 2 or 3 months that they talked about just how, because I mean, the subject is God, and so squeezing that into such a short video, listening to it on the podcast was just like incredible. And so this is something that it's really deep and really good, but it's totally annoying that you don't have to be a Bible scholar to get it. And which leads me to the next one, which is also done by Tim Mackey, one of the two guys on the Bible Project. Tim Mackey does another podcast called Exploring My Strange Bible. Tim Mackey is a pastor as well, and he goes back over the past 10 years of his teaching, and just has just his podcast is just some of his sermons and teachings that he's done. And he's going right now through the book of Matthew, and so that these are just like I said, every single one of them is gold. I mean, I would just I want to get on every week when I listen to it and share it, and I just stopped doing it because they're all good, and I just want to just get on this podcast right now. This is the podcast of podcasts. Just go listen to every single one. Just listen. Just start listening to this every week, and exploring my strange Bible. Tim Mackey. This leads me to the last one. This one is a little more in depth. The three I've already given you are pretty accessible just to anybody. This one gets a little more in depth. This is really, really, you start getting to be a Bible nerd on this last one. It's called the Naked Bible Podcast. And it's by a guy named Michael Heiser. He gets into some pretty deep stuff. So this might be a little deep for a lot of people. I would if you listen to the God series, the first, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 episodes of the God series, and here's some of the stuff they're talking about there, and that intrigues you, you would really like the Naked Bible Podcast. He goes into a lot of the stuff he talks about. He tries to strip the Bible of all of the his of the denominational and things that people bring into it. A lot of his Heiser's approach to the Bible, but his big claim to fame is that his research is he's kind of gone into looking at the supernatural worldview that the ancient Hebrews had that has kind of gotten lost over the years. And the best way to, if you're interested in his podcast, the best way to get introduced to him is to actually read one of his 2 books. If you are a Bible nerd already, I would suggest The Unseen Realm, Recovering the Supernatural Worldview of the Bible. This has got a lot of somewhat scholarly, and it's got a lot of footnotes. It's not overly scholarly. He gets super scholarly with a companion website, but he's got one for a second book that he wrote that covers the same material. And it's called Supernatural, What the Bible Teaches About the Unseen World and Why It Matters. So those 2 books are called, it's called The Unseen Realm. That's the deeper kind of version. And then the less so would be called Supernatural. But and you'll understand, it's a lot easier to understand his podcast if you read one of those 2 books first. Or you could just go to, he has a website as well, and you can kind of go there, and he's got some videos you can watch, and they'll kind of get you where he's going. But that's the Naked Bible Podcast. And he has a new book out that just came out called Angels, which is kind of a follow-up to, and then he has one that's a follow-up to Angels, which is going to be Demons, where he's talking about what the angels and the demons really are. But I would suggest one of either The Unseen Realm or Supernatural. You read those before you read Angels and Demons. And so those are the 4 that I suggest. Daily Audio Bible, The Bible Project, Exploring My Strange Bible, and the Naked Bible Podcast. Um, like I say, there's tons of great podcasts out there, and I'm not saying that these are the only four great podcasts. I'm saying these are four great podcasts, and you can't miss with them. Any episode you listen to will be a great episode, and every single one will be great, and none of them will be a dud. So, and I'm sure there are others out there that are just as good. And so feel free to shoot me a note if you know of others. I've seen some of them out there, and I want to check them out, and that's something I'm looking forward to. But in 2019, one of my goals is to catch up. I want to catch up on like these. All of these four are well. I don't need to catch up on the daily audio Bible is kind of an ongoing thing, but the other three I want to like go back and from the beginning. I've heard some of the early episodes. I want to hear all of those old episodes because they're all so good. I don't want to like not hear the early episodes. So I want to just like catch up on all of the ones that I didn't hear before I discovered them. So I want to hear all of them before I start a new podcast. And so I want to hear all of those and before I start something new. So that's my goal in 2019 is to hear all of the Bible Project, Exploring My Strange Bible, and Naked Bible podcast, sorry, that I haven't already heard, and get completely caught up on those. Then start some new podcasts, and so that's that. And if any of those that you aren't already listening, I suggest you listen to, give them a check out, and that's that. And I hope you have a great new year, and check back here. And that's my other goal, is to just make this podcast bigger and better all year long. And so just be here with me and check out my book. My book's out there. My new book is out. It's free for download. And so be checking that out and let me know if you like it and give me a good review. And it's there we'll have the tagline at the end of the podcast where you can get it. And we'll see you next time right here. And have a great, great new year and a great week. Thanks for listening to the Syncopator Familius podcast. Copyright 2019 Pharaoh's Drawers Productions. You can download my free ebook, The Beatitudes and Other Spiritual Lessons from Everyday Life, at smashwords.com.